Consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission: to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Universe Between Your Ears. I'm Tim Starr. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Gabi Musheyev.
Hello everyone, great to be here again.
And we have a special guest today that I met a couple of weeks back, and we had a very short conversation. And I just knew that I wanted to have her on the show because I have this feeling that we're going to get some good stuff here. So been looking forward to doing this. Our guest is Jana Bresenden. She is a truth teller, a love warrior, a world traveler, widow and mother of 3. And she shares stories that matter at janabresenden.com. Jana, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tim. So great to be here. And Gabi, really nice to meet you. I love the work that you guys are doing right now, just putting these important conversations that not very many people are willing to talk about. So I just want to say thank you and let you know I feel so just honored to be a part of your community.
Oh, thank you. It was, Gabi and I were talking about this right before you joined us. And I want to share this with the audience too, is that when we met, we didn't have, it was a little networking event, and we had definitely less than 5 minutes conversation, maybe 2. And so I didn't get really your whole story. I got a little bit of it, but there is something about you. And I've watched a couple of your videos, and it comes through on the videos. And so I know it's going to come through for people whether they're watching this video or they're just listening on audio. There is something. Not only are you beautiful to look at, but there's a beauty that comes out from inside. And I don't say that to people. That's for real. So I just knew when we spoke that you had something to share for people. So I wanted to have you. So I've been excited to get this going. So the big question is, where do we start on this? But let's start with, you've got do we call it an organization or just a project or something called Plan C?
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, it is really just a labor of love. About a year and a half ago, I got a message. It was completely random. Just, how you feel something really in your soul and you just don't know what to do with it. And for me, the word was share. I was doing this exercise with a group of my girlfriends talking about our word of the year, and everyone else in the room was coming up with these amazing stories or amazing words like adventure or goddess. And, I'm thinking, wow, those are all such great words. And the only word that was in front of my face, blinking like in lights, was share. Share, share, share. And I'm thinking, I don't like that word. Can I change my word? I want to exchange my word. And I just couldn't get away from it. And I had no idea what it would mean. And it probably took about 9 months before I realized that what I needed to do was start sharing my story of how I had lost everything and then figured out how to still create a life that I loved. Because even though the people that are near me and know me knew the struggle and knew the journey and came alongside me, I felt like there was just a bigger message to be shared. And so I didn't have any other agenda than I just turned on my Facebook Live one day and I said, on New Year's Day 2010, my husband died. And I just, started sharing. And I really had a commitment to people that I would be there 3 days a week to share my story so that other people would know that their story matters, that they're not alone, and that I just was inviting them to share a story with me. And I gave out like my personal email and everything. And I was really just overwhelmed with the response. I mean, people would email me and say things like, my husband left me 6 months ago and nobody knows. but I figured you'd understand because of what you've been through, right? Or my girlfriend died in a freak accident, kind of like a medical malpractice issue. And 24 hours before, she'd asked me to invite her estranged mother to come into the hospital to see her. She just really had a feeling she wanted to talk to her. And once this mother arrived, she kicked me out and said I wasn't family. I didn't have any right to be there. And then this medical issue happened and she died. He never got to say goodbye. And he hasn't said her name in 2 years. But he thought I could understand.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, my inbox is just like flooded with these kinds of stories. And it made me realize, after I'd done about 50 episodes, and I thought, you know, what is this going to be? The Jana show? This is going to get old really quick. This needs to be everybody's show. Other people need to have a chance to come on and share their stories so that we can have a community about, you know, what do you do when life happens? Because what I realized is that once you've been around for any length of time, you realize that your plan A just, it didn't work out. Or your plan B, or your plan, I mean, it could be on like H or J, and who knows what's coming up. So that's kind of why I thought of the name, Find Your Plan C. And it is just a community and an online video show for people to either, one, share their stories of maybe struggles that they've been through and lessons they've learned along the way, because I really believe that life can still be beautiful even after it doesn't go how you planned. So we talk about those kinds of things, but also, you know, there's some people that just don't know how to share and they don't know who to talk to. Maybe they just need that little bit of inspiration and think, well, if, you know, they could do it, maybe I could do it too. So I'm just really hoping that it'll be a place for people to connect. And that's really the extent of the vision right now. It's just, let's get out of the shadows and stop doing this alone. It's too hard.
Yeah. There, you know, I want to comment on this idea of sharing. There are, one of my personal pet peeves is that when you hear people talking about, you know, going out and finding your life purpose and you know, sort of changing the world and stuff, it translates for me at least as you got to find something big to do. You got to go accomplish great things. You got to move mountains. And the reality is, you know, what you're doing is changing the world. Right? In a large part of what you're doing is for you. It's so that it's cathartic. It's therapeutic to do this stuff. But the fact that you're getting the emails from other people and people are commenting, that is proof that you're touching people, that you're making a difference. And so I just want to kind of get that point across to the audience, that it doesn't matter who you are, or it doesn't matter even what you're sharing.
Yeah.
Somewhere, somehow, in some way, you're going to touch somebody. And you may not even ever hear about it, but that is enough. You don't have to feel like, you know, I'm a failure in life because I'm not the next Steve Jobs.
Absolutely. And it's so simple. You know, really, it's simple, but not everyone does it, right? So I really believe that sharing is where the magic happens. That's where you can really come soul to soul with another person and create a whole new experience or a whole new understanding, right? Because when you're just either one, totally numbed out and going through the motions, no magic is happening there. And on the other hand, when you're posturing and trying to project an image of something, right? I'm successful, I've got my act together, I know what I'm doing. There's not really any room for magic there either. It's just understood, or it's just business as usual. And I want to live in a world where there's lots of magic, you know?
Yeah.
Your life must have changed tremendously, right? From plan A, right? And would you say that sharing, Jana, can I call you Jana one?
Of course, you know I love it.
Would you say that sharing was your way of coping with the challenges that you encountered?
That's such a great question. I definitely think sharing was a part of it. So, you know, really in my journey, I think a lot of where I found the strength to move on was more like a faith. As I've gone over, I mean, it's been 8 years now, so I've had a lot of time to process and more time to interact with other people who have really suffered so deeply. But I mean, I was in my early 30s when I found out my husband had a brain tumor. I mean, I was 6 months pregnant with my youngest son. We found out he had cancer. He just had a few years to live. And at that time, I really attributed most of my ability to move on because of the faith that I had, that because of the way everything had unfolded. I mean, it's kind of a long story, but if you want me to share it with you, we were actually expats at the time living in China. So I wasn't even at home. I wasn't even at home in my foreign country when we found out my husband had a brain tumor. We were on vacation in Singapore, and I got a phone call at the pool. My 2 kids are swimming in the pool, and I get a phone call from him that he's got a brain tumor and they're checking him into the hospital and he won't be coming back after a routine doctor's visit. So at that time, it just so happened that sitting right next to me at the pool were some former neighbors of ours that had since moved to Shanghai. So they weren't even living in the same city. We had no idea they were going to be traveling to this same foreign country for vacation, but they just happened to be there when I got the call and were able to take the kids for me so that I could go to the hospital. So I get to the hospital and we need a second opinion. We need to get a neurosurgeon to tell us if what this one doctor is saying is true, except I don't know anyone in Singapore. I do have a friend in Beijing that I know is Singaporean, and I sent her an email saying, hey, can you help me out with this problem? She shoots me an email right back telling me her visa's been canceled. She's in Singapore and will be there the next 30 days. She'll come to the hospital and pick me up right now. So, she helps me out. We go find a doctor. My brother-in-law had planned a trip to Europe. He was traveling, or to Asia. He was traveling around with his friends. They were going to go to Japan and see a baseball game, and they were planning to meet us back in our apartment in Beijing the following week. So I called my mother-in-law and said, hey, Mom, is there any chance Paul could change his travel arrangements and come here to Singapore? He was my kid's favorite uncle at the time. And she said, let me check his itinerary, and got on the phone and said, he's landing there at 1 p.m. So you can imagine, here I am, the worst possible thing is happening, right?
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I'm alone. I don't feel like no one cares. I couldn't have planned this better myself if I wanted to. If I would have called these friends in Shanghai and said, hey, can you travel to Singapore next week? Because I might need a friend or a favor. I mean, nobody would say yes to that. Nobody would even ask that. But, here I am having access to everything I need, fully supported. And that's really when I got that message loud and clear. Like, 1, there is a God, a universe, a source, a power bigger than myself that's figuring things out. And 2, he cares about me. And that really changes everything.
Yeah, it is really amazing how all that stuff can line up sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you have to, the first thing you mention happens, and then you can say, oh, that's a coincidence. And then there's a second and a third and a fourth. All of these things coming together really they were happening before you even got the call. And, that's hard to just write off as coincidence, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? If it's a coincidence, can I have some more coincidences, please?
Yeah.
I'll just take 2. Yeah. That's really how it felt. So, I mean, I do think that experience was a frame for everything that came next, right? Because once you have a story that you're living by, it's really hard to change that story. So now you're looking for more miracles, right? You're looking for more things to be grateful for. You're looking for more serendipity, kind of, similar to the law of attraction. You just start to see how things are moving in your favor. And so I will say that was a really huge part of it. And then the second part, which I actually learned from my late husband, it was in the sharing. I mean, really quickly, he would tell people, oh yeah, can you believe I have brain cancer? And like, you know, go on with the rest of the sentence.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, you know, there are some examples that life coaches use to try to help people accelerate transformation. And one of them is an exercise where you imagine, you know, you only have 5 years left to live. What do you want people to say about you on that day when now you have to say goodbye, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't need a life coaching exercise to do that. We actually got to live through that. And so even though I tend to be more of a private person by nature, I tend to be more self-sufficient. You know, I want to try and do it myself. I really saw my late husband, his name was Tim also, by the way, really lead by example in letting people in to his story. Because when you see a guy with brain cancer getting out there and fighting on social justice issues, or, you know, pulling people together to try to figure out how to bring sanitary toilet facilities to the country of Africa, or, do you know what I mean? Like, saying hello to a migrant worker and offering him a beer. You know, it's really hard to say bad things about a guy like that. And it's also hard to make excuses for why you're not living the life you want to be living or have the impact that you want to be having.
Right.
When you're around a guy like that, right? So it almost like gives everybody a permission slip to elevate.
Yeah. It's, you know, I keep saying life is about as ugly or as beautiful as we want it to be. It just depends on what you want to look at. And every moment we have a choice for what we want to look at. We can look at the ugly crap, or we can look at possibilities. And it's up to us. You know.
Absolutely. I like to tell people that you have a choice, right? No matter what's happened in your life, you know, no matter how bad it hurt, or how disappointed you were, that's really only one chapter in the story of your life. You get to decide what comes next. You're the author. Are you going to create a story worth telling? Or are you going to retell the old one that wasn't working in the first place? And, you know, you can't judge people who choose to do that. But I think it's that word choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's so empowering if you can get your head wrapped around that.
Well, a lot of that is habit, right? We learn it from little kids, and you know, we just keep doing it and keep repeating, and keep reinforcing it. And you know, my mother she saw herself as a victim of the universe, and she died that way, you know, and it was all by choice, because, yeah, I mean, well, the reality in her case is it was all her doing, and she would have had to examine herself and face the truth and make changes if she wanted to change things. But she just would keep finding people that would listen to her story for a while, and oh, you poor thing, you know, and until they get tired of hearing it. But
yeah, I would say if anyone, God forbid, has to face this kind of tragedy, right? I think that's a huge test for a person, and also an opportunity to really transform, right?
Yeah.
In the consciousness, in the mindset, right? And I've seen that happen. You know, my wife lost her father really early. And for a long, long time, anybody mentions his name, she would just break into tears, right?
Yeah.
And then the transformation happened, and she, you know, we got into this Abraham Hicks world, right? The law of attraction or whatever, and she just treats death as just a passage from one, you know, material state into the spiritual state, and she calls it croaking, right? So he croaked, and she jokes about it a lot, you know, and little by little, she started releasing that, I would call it, you know, this pain, right? Emotional pain.
Yes.
And was able to for the first time to talk about this, and really like, then there is this feeling that of presence, of his presence in her
Yes.
life. There's almost like she could talk with him, and there's a feeling that he was there,
Yes.
watching over me,
Yes.
that kind of feeling. It was amazing transformation. I was a witness, and I think that for anyone who goes through this, and I really do feel that, the way you describe this, plan C, and planning, or I guess making any plans at all doesn't seem to work for us, right? Living in the moment, living in the moment and just accepting what is, right? Seems to, and whatever happens, this just happened, life happens, as you're saying, right? You never know, what else. There's so many different forces in the works, right? And you could just be collateral damage. Although, if you follow the law of attraction, somehow you're creating your experience. So you should be able to, I hear stories when people are having like an open lane and everyone else is stuck in traffic and they just speed forward, no question. And miracles happen like that, and
Yeah.
you're creating them, So I would say being present and just not converting the life situation into your like a psychological, emotional kind of state of mind, right? And just treating it as it is. What is it? What happened? Okay, this happened. It happens with, that's hard. I don't know how you could do it. I never had to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good start, we in this podcast, we've had people who went through some really major challenges, substance abuse, and there are people who were diagnosed with cancer and survived miraculously. People who lost the close ones, and one common theme for them is that that caused them to transform. If they survive, they survived, a huge transformation happened. And now I'm looking at you, Jana, and I'm thinking, you're raising these 3 kids. You're active, you're full of energy, and you're communicating this amazing message to the people, how empowering this is. And I feel that, have you been like this being that you are today before this happened?
No, 100% no. And I'm actually pretty sure this is the comment that got Tim's attention. Is I really feel like having my heart broken. Actually, it just broke it wide open. It made me more beautiful, more powerful, more loving, more impactful than I ever would have been. I'm so grateful that pretty early on, it was maybe 2-3 months after my late husband passed. Sorry, I'm in Miramar. I don't know if you can hear a big airplane going overhead.
Yeah.
But I was in a workshop of some kind, and the man in front was really talking about how suffering brings people together. And we were all acknowledging different ways that we'd suffered. And when you made eye contact with someone else who had had a similar struggle, there is a connection like, wow, I see you. I understand what it is that you're going through. But the thing that caused a very powerful shift that day is, he shared the unlikely story of a conversation between the Pope and Michelangelo about his masterpiece, David, sculpture made out of marble. And he said, how did you get the inspiration to make this beautiful work of art? And Michelangelo answered, I could see that he was already in the marble. I just cut away the pieces that didn't belong.
Yeah.
And what I took that as a metaphor in my own life is that I didn't understand why this man that I loved, my soulmate, the father of my 3 children that I had built a beautiful life with, wasn't part of my story anymore. But for whatever reason, that relationship was cut away, but I was still a masterpiece and in the process of becoming a masterpiece. And kind of like we were talking about before, when that's your frame of reference, now I'm looking for different ways, right? Like, how can I be a masterpiece? If Tim and Jana doesn't exist as a couple anymore, right? Like, well, then who's Jana? And it's like, I got this gigantic permission slip to try to figure out who that was, because most moms with young kids do not have that permission. Mm-hmm. Somehow they've gotten a message or created a story that I exist to serve and raise these young children, or my partner, or my community. They don't have a message that just because you have a family doesn't mean you don't exist. And so I actually got to take my whole community along on that ride with me. I thought, well, you know what? I want to complete a triathlon. I got my girlfriends to come along with me. Like, I want to get to the top of Half Dome. So we would, we made the trip to Yosemite. We got our permits. We trained on the weekends, and we got to the top of that mountain. We would go to Hawaii. We would take the kids and have water balloon fights. It was just like one adventure after the other. And because everyone wanted to see me thrive, and because I had given myself this permission slip to live, right? Then it was like everybody else got to have the same thing too. And there was just such a feeling of community and joy and sharing. So, it kind of comes back around to the sharing again. What if I would have just done all these things on my own and not invited all these women to come out and play with me, right? Have their husbands be supportive that they were doing this. Because it can be easy sometimes to tell people like, well, I have this or that responsibility. But again, because of my story and because of my background, the husbands are like, go make it happen. I got the kids. And so I feel like, we really raise the bar even for our own kids about understanding a woman's role in the house, need to be her own person and follow her own dreams. So I really love that is the legacy that I'm leaving my daughter as well.
There's so many things in there to talk about. I don't even know where to start. The idea, one of the things that you said earlier is the permission slip idea, that these women that are raising younger kids and they don't feel like they have permission to be anything but mom and a housewife.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of what is supposed to typically be a male perspective. And what happened to me, I was 54 years old and got a phone call at work. Today's your last day, go home.
Wow. And
there was no warning, no nothing. And that was supposed to be, it's a big life event, and it was supposed to make me depressed and question, who am I? If I'm not my job, what am I? And it didn't. And thank God it didn't. But that's what that makes me think of. So you have these women in this case who are self-labeled as mom/wife and don't see beyond that. And that's a shame. I forget what else I had. You said a lot. There's so many things in there. Oh, one of the things I wanted to ask about was, you had around you already, you had friends and community that were supportive and were ready to go and do these things with you.
Yeah.
That just strikes me as an unusual scenario where
yes.
Most people probably don't seem to have that. They're more likely to have people that are telling them, oh no, you can't go and do that because you've got these responsibilities. You've got, So
I do think a couple unique things that happen there is because we'd been living in China when we found out my husband was sick. We moved back to the States, and I was 6 months pregnant. I had a husband with cancer, and I just couldn't make friends the way that I learned to make friends before, which was, let's have everybody over. I'll serve people, we'll have parties, we'll have the kids do things. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I literally, for 2 years, would pray for friends to come into my life because I couldn't go find them, get them. And there was kind of like a smattering here or there, but no one like super close. And then about 6 months before my husband passed, there was like all the wives of his best friends just suddenly decided they were going to be best friends with me. And I mean, these are women that I had known for several years, but we just had never been close. Our husbands were close. And so we decided that every Tuesday night, we were going to get together after the kids went to bed. So all of you moms out there who are thinking you don't have time to spend with your friends, when you have young kids, they go to bed at 7 o'clock. So skip your chores, you know, skip the TV or whatever else that you normally do when your kids finally get in bed. Hang out with your girlfriends. You will be better for it. Your kids will be better for it. Your husbands will be better for it. And so what started out as a weekly practice where we would maybe have a glass of wine, watch So You Think You Can Dance, I mean, or some TV show or whatever. After a while, you kind of start having these really interesting conversations, right? And getting into each other's lives and marriages and just, you know, having fun. And then there's nothing that cements a relationship like tragedy. Because all these women were there. I'm pretty sure, let me think about this. Literally there the day he died.
Mm-hmm.
So we all said goodbye together. You know, they watched me put my children on their dad's chest to say goodbye. Watch him take his last breath. And then when the coroner came, I left the house with some other family members and we all took our kids to Chuck E. Cheese. Because I thought, I don't want them to see any of this gore. Let's just make a party out of it. And it's just like those kinds of things that, you know, it just cements a relationship. Like you're in it for the long haul after that. So that meant these are the women that 2 days later was going to be my son's 3rd birthday. They planned that party. I could barely get myself out of bed. You know, a couple weeks later, it was a service. You know, they were the ones putting out the flyers and the flowers and getting the guest books together. And, you know, I mean, all the things that go into it when you plan a service for someone. So, you know, those were just some of the things that kind of got the ball rolling. But it was because we had invested that commitment to one another for those 6 months before it really hit the fan, that we were able to walk together through that. And we did that weekly. We just stopped recently because our kids are so much older and things got really busy. I think probably like at the end of last year. So that meant for more than 8 years, we've been together weekly, going through life together, marriages, divorces, you know, kids stuff. It's been amazing, really, to have that.
So who's the linchpin? I get the feeling it's you. It's like you're in the center and they're all just kind of attached around you.
Yes, I would say that's true. And only, I mean, I feel like a lot of it is because of my late husband and the support in the community that he brought to us and his memory. You know, I mean, it's going to be his birthday on Monday, and his friends still get together with me and we go out for a pint at, you know, one of their favorite bars. And I just think, you know, who else has that? You know, 8 years later, do you know of any friends that are still getting together for, you know, to celebrate birthdays? And, you know, we have an annual kickball game now because he passed on New Year's Day. The reason why everyone was at our house is because we were planning to have a barbecue that day. It's just kind of like things took a turn and everyone was already at the house. And so now we just keep having a kickball game to have fun and be together. But yeah, I mean, I could say a lot about it, but.
There's 2 things I want to mention. I love the idea that you took the kids to Chuck E. Cheese because in this culture, death is a sad thing, but we wallow in it, right? We roll around in it and mourn and some of that's probably therapeutic, but at some point you need to move on. Personally, I want, you know, let's do a New Orleans jazz funeral parade, you know, with the crappy musicians and whatever. Let's have a party. I have stopped, like, a couple of people died recently, and one just a few days ago, and I got a phone call, where she died like last night. If you want to come tomorrow for a viewing, she's going to be cremated the next day. And I said, no, I got to pass. I don't want to remember her as, a dead person. I want to remember the one who was smiling and laughing and joking. And, but the other thing is, you said earlier about your husband being taken out of that. I forget exactly the wording you used. You just said that he wasn't, part of your story anymore. And I think the correction I want to make on that is that he still is. He obviously still is. It's just he's got a different role.
Yes.
Yeah. So
absolutely, I agree with that 100%. Yes.
Yeah, I totally identify with what you're saying, Tim, because this is cultural, right? About death. In the place where I was brought up, they hired special women who were good at crying really loud, and it was a show, huge show. And the purpose was to create this emotional state to make it easier, for the close ones, for the relatives and friends to open up and grieve, That's how I understood it. And actually it did help, because it releases this energy, right? This, but that what's happening now is, I think the humanity is revisiting the idea of death, what it actually means, and it's going to take a long time, but I think the Western world, is behind a little bit than the Eastern world on that.
Yeah.
The spirituality teaches, as you can see, when you speak with the Hindu people, speak with the Chinese, with the people, you travel a lot, you probably had that experience, right? It's the idea that you're just passing to a different state. And I mean, if you don't attach remorse and maybe guilt, or I don't know, some people are even blaming themselves, or the feeling like, oh, poor me, why was I dealt that tragic card, right? Can you imagine how much negativity will be removed so that we could move on? Because this is psychological time. I like that idea of, like, when the time is now. When you start dwelling on the past, you're losing that time, right?
Yes.
You're converting your moments, you're losing them, right? You're not living. And how helpful would that be for people around you, especially 3 kids you're raising, right? If you're stuck in there and you can't be present for them, right? So that Chuck E. Cheese story, I also felt, Tim, you're right. It's amazing. You're right. Absolutely. Not many people will understand, though, but
Screw them.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you on that.
Well, I think what happened pretty early on for us, so I'll tell you a funny story, how those kinds of things started. So I don't know if you know, but in San Diego, there's been a couple times where we've had really big fires, and personally our home has been evacuated because the fires were that close. So the first time that happened, I tend to be a planner. So I pretty much know how everything that I need and how to get out of my house in 10, 20 minutes. So we got the call and we loaded the kids up in the van and the photos and the laptops and everything, and we just went to Disneyland because I thought, if our house is going to burn down, we might as well be at the happiest place on earth. Like, no use standing over here wringing my hands watching it go, and everything I need is in this car. The people that I love and care about, everything else can be replaced. And I think that was like the first time where I really like tried to, hey, if there is just something really horrible happening, how can we turn this, make it into something, a memory, a beautiful memory, so that we can kind of like put those two things together. And I've always given my kids and myself permission to feel however you're going to feel. So, you know, sometimes they would be so sad if they saw a picture of their dad or a video or something, and they just wouldn't want to watch because it made them sad. And I would just say, it's okay to be sad. You loved him and he's not here. It would be weird if you weren't sad. Mm-hmm. You're doing exactly the right thing. And at the same time, if we go have fun and we're laughing and playing and giggling and you're like, I feel so bad because, you know, dad's not here, so I shouldn't feel happy. It's like, no, he would want you to be happy. It's okay for you to be happy. So I think just leaving a lot of room for people to express, you know, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Kind of to your point that some people might not understand. Thank God for me, I'm okay with people not understanding. Yeah. That doesn't affect my process one little bit, because I know that they haven't been through it or they don't understand because they haven't had to go through it yet. And that's okay. I have tons of room and grace for them.
Well, we've got so much, I have never understood the desire to make a big thing about remembering the day somebody died. It seems much more logical, much more just positive to remember the day they were born. Let's remember their birthday and celebrate that. Why do you want to go and wallow in the pain of, you know, the day they died? And you know, I don't know.
It's only
you
about
be able to move past these things.
It's how you look at it, right? We celebrate that person on the day of their departure, right? Remembering the amazing contributions or experiences that we shared together, right? So that's it. If it's a positive and it's a warm and joyful experience when people share their memories, like remember our mutual friend Marshall passed away, right? We went on the beach and there were people. It was an amazing experience. I took my daughter there and we were on the beach. It was an amazing day. And we made a big circle holding hands together. And we took turns remembering things, you know, where this person touched our lives, you know. And I had no idea just how amazing this person had been for other people. I thought for myself, for other people. And when they spoke those words, I was like, oh my God, I feel the same way, you know, that, you know, and I kind of connected. And you know what, in that circle that was formed, right, new friendships began.
Yes.
You see, because we were touched by the same person, you know, and we were on the same vibration. Almost wanted to hug everyone.
Right? I love it.
Yeah, but that's not what we normally do. You know, a year later, then people are at the grave and crying. You know, they're not. If that was the ceremony, a year later or 10 years later, people getting around and celebrating the person's life, then I'd have a different opinion. But that's not what we do. We go and
it's starting.
And we get sad all over again. You know.
Yeah, and people even put it in their will. You know that's how you're gonna honor me. You know, after I pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So ever since we started this kickball game on New Year's Day, which is super awesome because kickball is like the universal playing field. You could have pregnant ladies and grandpas and toddlers all out there at the same time playing this game, right? So awesome. But anyways, I think it was last year. So we all get in a circle and I just thank everyone for coming. I usually say something. But last year was the first year. So 7 years of doing this, 2 people in the circle said, my grandfather also passed away on New Year's Day. And another woman said one of her family members as well on the same day. And I was like, how come you never mentioned it? We've been here all this time. And, you know, they just didn't want to intrude or didn't feel like it was the right time. But one of the things that we have in the park where we have this kickball game is there's a long fence, and I always put up these big posters of, you know, Tim and, you know, just like a little memory wall. And so this year I told everyone, bring a picture of the person that you want to remember, and let's just like put them all up together, because all these people are the ones who got us to where we are today, and they deserve to be recognized, because you're right, they are with us all the time. It's not like they're missing out, right? Even right after he passed, I remembered thinking, Tim's the only one who's not crying, because he gets what's happening right now at the other side. It's like when your little kid is crying over something and you're like, dude, Christmas is tomorrow. You don't have to cry over that toy. I feel like it's kind of similar. Time and space don't exist in the same way for them. But still, it feels good to acknowledge and to know that we have that support coming energetically from, you know, another place. So,
and that, you know, that's just real quick, that's an example of making the choice of how do you want to view things, you know, and if you want to view things as, oh, this is, you know, every year I get so sad and I feel so down, depressed because this is the day. Okay, that's a choice that you're making to look at it that way. Yeah, it happened. You don't have to, nobody's saying deny anything, but you can go at it from a different perspective and say, I want to, today's the day I'm going to use to celebrate what they contributed. And you can 100% change that.
You know, really cool thing that we used to do in my former company, and maybe your audience, somebody would love to take this. I'd love to hear back on your experience of it. But we had a coworker, also a young woman, who passed from colon cancer. And our company it was a Live Your Life Day. And the whole company got the day off. And the only thing you had to do was send in a photo of yourself doing something you've always wanted to do. So people would go skydiving, they'd get tattoos, water skiing, you know, zip lining. I mean, sit in front of the TV with their cats. I mean, the results were wide and varied, but amazing. But the whole point was, taking something that other people might think as a sad event and turn it into a party, an experience, a reason to live your life. And I love that.
Yeah. We need to start a movement.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm in.
Something,
I'm in.
Because it's habit, it's tradition, right? It's whatever. It's just something that, you know, it's like that story, Gabi, you told it recently, you know, somebody's cooking and she cuts off the two ends of the roast before she puts it in the pan. You know that story? And
yes.
And you know, the daughter is, Mom, why do you always cut off the ends of the roast? I don't know. My mom used to do it all the time. Get hold of Mom. Well, why did you know? I don't know. My mother used to do it. And they get hold of the grandmother or the great grandmother and, you know, ask her, why did you always cut off the ends of the roast? Why are we doing this? And she said, the roasting pan that I had was small and the roast would never fit. So I had to cut the ends off to fit it in there. You know,
yep.
It doesn't necessarily make sense going forward. And people do things in the moment sometimes because of necessity, but that doesn't mean that you have to hang on to that forever. You know?
I love it. Yes.
May I ask you, Jana, what is your vocation? What do you do for your passion? What's your passion in life?
Well, besides my kids and this project, Find Your Plan C, I'm an online marketer. I actually was a behavior therapist. For 20 years, I worked with children on the autism spectrum and their families.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Passionate. I'm so passionate about giving people with special needs a voice and a way to communicate who they are in this world. But a couple of years ago, I just really felt like I had built a comfortable life. I had built a comfortable practice, but comfortable was making me crazy. And it was really time for me to learn something new. So our family business is called Ho'omana Spa Maui. It's a Hawaiian healing retreat on the island of Maui. And we share Lomi Lomi and the spiritual teachings of aloha in a bed and breakfast and spa and a cultural education center. So we teach massage therapists and energy workers and really literally students all over the world that unconditional love and aloha is what is needed to heal the planet. So, and now I spend my days just spreading that message.
Are you there now? Where, is this there?
No, I'm here in San Diego. I do all my work remotely. My sister and my parents and I own the business. And so, yeah, it's really, she's the visionary. She's the teacher. She's the one who's brought everything forward. So I work in marketing and operations and strategy, mostly business strategy now.
That's amazing.
Maybe we need to have a conversation with your sister.
You need to. She will blow your mind. She is a beautiful soul, 100%.
Are you guys close? Meaning like in age?
Yeah, I'm 16 months older.
Okay.
So, you know, really as adults, I think we've gotten to appreciate each other a lot more. Sometimes when you're born close together in age, there can be a vying for resources and attention. But, you know, now that we're older, we love being in business together. We really bring different strengths to the table, and it gives us more of an opportunity to be with our families. She has 4 kids, and her husband, they live there in Maui, and I have my 3 kids here. So creating this business together has really given us a lot of opportunity to, yeah, make lifestyle choices that really work well and are family friendly. And
you're not moving there, right? Because of the...
Not anytime soon. Yeah.
It's a different lifestyle there, I think, right? I'm sure kids would not have the same experiences as they would in San Diego in the U.S. Well, it is U.S. school, but I guess it's different, right? In Hawaii.
Yeah, definitely. The academics are different. I do think it is more rigorous here. And you know, the economical,
especially California schools are amazing. Yeah.
And economic opportunities, I think, are different here. I think that living on Maui, you have a different understanding and appreciation for the land, for spirituality, for your ancestors, for your personal responsibility and unity, you know, because you're living in an island culture. So there's more of an awareness of those universal heart-based principles. And it's not even necessarily something that you need to be taught. It's just you are, because you're in the community and it's a way of being. Well, so I think we could each share,
is that part of, sorry, I don't want to jump in, but I'm going to jump in.
No, I think I know what you're going to ask. I like that question already.
I don't know. What I'm curious, it just strikes me that, you know, one of the reasons that you have that in Hawaii is that you've got that Polynesian culture that is still, it's not entirely homogenous, but it's not nearly as overrun with everybody else as it is here. I haven't been there, I'm ignorant, but that's the impression that I have, is that it's still it's sort of still predominantly native influence. Or is that right?
I would say influence, yes, but you have to remember that there are very few full-blooded Native Hawaiians left. Literally within the next 20, 30 years, it will be none. There's a documentary called "And Then There Were None," talking about the decline of the Hawaiian people as a race of people. But it is an island, and over the last 150 years, there has just been an influx of immigrants, right? Because the Native Hawaiians that were found on this amazing paradise with water and land and food and everything they needed, they didn't need to work and, you know, make plantations and do these kinds of things, like work all day from morning to night. They spent their days, you know, picking fruit from the tree, fishing in the ocean, surfing, you know, making love, playing. That was like their days. And so there was a large influx of immigrants brought in to work, you know, once the economies changed and the land ownership changed. So, you know, there's Filipinos and Koreans and Japanese and, I mean, Chinese, all kinds living together, Portuguese as well. But they have found a way to live together, and there is an overriding spirit of community, because when you're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and there's nowhere to go, you have to figure out how to live together. And that is actually one of the big messages of our education that we're sharing at Ho'omana, is how can we take these ancient values of sustainability, of unity, of personal responsibility, and bring them forward into a modern context that can be used outside of this island paradise? Because it is exactly that understanding that resources are finite and have to be tended and cared for that allows you to continue using them. So, you know, communities, that communities are really important and sticking together. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, I think, Tim, what I was expecting in your question,
I let you down, I'm sure, I know.
that Hawaii is probably in the camp of collectivist societies as opposed to individualistic societies as the Western world is, right? So the two camps, and they're like really separated, East and West, right? West is individualistic, East is more collectivist. And coming from a collectivist society, I was born in the former Soviet Union, right? Into the U.S., the contrast was striking. You know how much, well, they would call it self-centered, you know, individuals I encountered here in the U.S. You know, the interests of the state were always ahead of the individualistic interests in those societies, right? And it was always about balance, right? And
yes, the implementation is everything, right?
Yin yang, you know, it's always the balance. And right now, I think the world is coming back into that balance. You know, it was for 20 years it was a little bit out of balance, and we saw it in many wars. And now it's finally coming into a little more balance, and homeostasis is being restored. That's what I was thinking you're gonna ask.
That's what I meant to ask. Yeah.
But you know, you reminded me, Jana, about this. When a Westerner comes to an island and there's this person who is picking the fruit from a tree and just having a great time, you know, sunbathing and watching the birds and whatever. And the Westerner's like, I can't believe this lazy, you know, person. But why? You know, why won't they do something? And so the Westerner approaches that person and says, I can't believe it, you're wasting your life, you know. Well, he's got, I'm enjoying it. What do you want me to do? Well, you know, why won't you like gather this fruit and like make them into juice? Why do I need juice? Well, then, you know, you could sell this juice and make profit. Oh, profit. What's that? Oh, you know, okay, so what do I do with the profit? Well, you know, with the profit, you could go and, you know, and buy yourself an island and enjoy yourself, you know, all day long. You know?
That's what I'm doing now.
Having fruit, yeah. You know, I missed the 3 or 4 things that you suggested there just to make the story short, but you got the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Jana, did we lose you? Okay, so you guys in the audience won't see or hear what actually happened, but Jana had a little technical issue, and we lost her for a little while and talked about her behind her back while she was gone, but she's back now. And but we just I want to give you an opportunity to, you know, give people whatever sort of contact information. Where do you want to send them? How do they get more of you and get in touch with you, all that kind of stuff?
Honestly, the easiest way, if you want to find me on Facebook, you can go to Find Your Plan C. That's my Facebook page where we're hosting an online video show. You'll see tons of resources and links to meditations, prayers, and events, classes. Eventually, all those things will be up there. But for now, we just want to have conversations with people. You know, what's going on in your world? What's important to you? If you need an inspirational story or pick-me-up, that's probably the way to do it. And honestly, I'd love for you to just reach out to me. My personal email is hello@janabresenden.com. And I really want to hear what impacted you about this interview and honestly where you see your story going, because I want more people to be empowered to write this next chapter of their lives in a way that makes them feel excited and a story that's worth telling.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah, so thank you guys for having me on. Keep doing the work that you're doing in this world and asking these incredible questions, because the more that we have these conversations, I know that's just going to shift this whole movement of social consciousness faster and faster and faster, and that's what the world needs right now. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks for joining us and helping us to get the word out, and you know, I knew you would be bringing some good nuggets, so I enjoyed the conversation. Gabi, I know you enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great fun, and it was great to meet you. And team, thank you for making this happen. Absolutely. Good luck. Well, I'll definitely check out the Facebook, and I know that there's a chance that maybe we could even have you and meet you in person. That'd be great if that happens too. Yeah.
Yes, I would love it. It's done. It's happening.
Well, we'll shoot you the info.
Okay, sounds good. Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around. Bye-bye.